Now, I want to move on to one other, because those of you who listen to me on radio, you know I brought up Judge Richard Posner. Now, Judge Richard Posner is a circuit court judge on the Seventh Circuit, which is based in Chicago. It's a very powerful circuit. They all are, but this one, after the D.C. Circuit, is considered one of the most powerful. He's been around a long time. He's another arrogant SOB, much like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and others. And he's been viewed as somewhat of an originalist, but rather quirky and a massive egomaniac, in my humble opinion. And when Scalia was alive, he used to throw a lot of mudballs at Scalia because Richard Posner believes that he should have been on the Supreme Court. And Richard Posner has been jealous of it since day one. And so he would take on Scalia, the smartest man on the court, one of the smartest men ever on the court, to try and show that he was smarter. And even in Scalia's death, he was snarky and rude and put him down, which shows he shouldn't be on any court. But more than that, I'll tell you why he shouldn't be on any court. This is an article from Slate.com, just a few weeks old. And he's doing this Supreme Court breakfast table, they call it, where I guess they have tea and crumpets. And during the course of the discussion, he says this, and I quote specifically, "I see absolutely no value to a judge of spending decades, years, months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, or seconds studying the Constitution, the history of its enactment, its amendments, and its implementation. Across the centuries, well, just a little more than 2 centuries, and of course less for many of the amendments. 18th century guys, however smart, could not foresee the culture, technology, etc. of the 21st century. Which means that the original Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the post-Civil War amendments, including the 14th, that would be 14, 15, 16, 13, 14, 15, do not speak to today. David Strauss, he says, is right, whomever that is. The Supreme Court treats the Constitution like it's authorizing the court to create common law of constitutional law, based on current concerns, not what those 18th century guys were worrying about. Now, it doesn't get more outrageous than this. What he's done is he's taken the Constitution and he's flushed it down the toilet. He said, we're a court of common law. That is, we'll sit here, maybe we'll look at the Constitution, we'll look at events today, we'll look at history, not just history in this country, history all over the world. We'll make these decisions here. We're judges. And we can't be bound by this Constitution. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the man just described out-and-out tyranny. This isn't a nation of judges. It's not a nation of government. It's a nation of individuals. That's what it's supposed to be. Now, what he's saying here is I have maximum flexibility to rule as I choose to rule, based on what I think I need to take into consideration. Whereas I have written over the decades and have argued, and others have, including Scalia and Bork, among others. No, actually, you can't do that. Now, you can look at the text of the Constitution, but sometimes the text is inadequate. We call ourselves originalists. What that means is we're trying to discern what the framers of the Constitution meant, based on the language at the time, based on the history at the time, that is, the events they were living, based on whatever we can find to discern what they meant. That's the law. That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. Now, there's some lower state courts where they have contract disputes, and they're supposed to look at the contracts and decide what the terms and conditions are in the contract, the judge, and apply them to the facts. Or maybe you have a mortgage and there's a dispute. You're supposed to look at the mortgage agreement and apply them to the facts, or a car loan, or whatever it is. The Constitution does not say under Article 3, hey, you know what, we're going to have some judges and they can ignore this document and apply common law, and because things are going to change, we can't predict the future, maybe there'll be new technology, so that's that. Is that what the Constitution says? My God, There is no way they would have adopted a Constitution like that. They wouldn't have written a Constitution like that. And there's no way the states would have ratified a Constitution like that. That is precisely why I say we live in a post-constitutional period. You have a Supreme Court justice who says what she says. You have a powerful Circuit Court justice who many people rely on, who says what he says. You have a President of the United States who says, I have a pen and a phone, and I'll do whatever the hell I want to do. You have a United States Congress that surrenders their own powers voluntarily when it's the power of the purse, the treaty power, among other powers. And all I have to hear about is progressive statism, and I'm a nationalist, and I'm a populist. What are you talking about? Without the Constitution, we're just any other country. It's the Constitution that we fight for. It's the freedom enshrined in the Constitution that we fight for. And what Posner should understand, but doesn't care about, ladies and gentlemen, the reason the Constitution needs to be fixed and stable is so that you have the freedom to pursue what you want to pursue, so that you have the freedom to evolve, so that you have the freedom to exercise, the way you wish to live your life, as long as it's not criminal or immoral in certain respects. So it's not the Constitution that's mutable. It's your lifestyle if you should change your job or whatever. So the point of the Constitution is to maximize, within a social order, your liberty. That's why we have all these checks and balances, not to empower judges. So this man utterly confuses, perhaps intentionally so, the civil society with government. Government is not the civil society. Government exists to preserve the civil society. It is not the civil society. It's not our families. It's not our churches. It's not our businesses. It's not our workplace. It's not our household. That's the civil society. Liberty and tyranny. Government exists to protect it. To protect it. And when judges and public officials act outside their limited roles, as spelled out fairly well in the Constitution, then they're violating it and the rise of tyranny. That's what we mean by being constitutional conservatives. That's why we reject all these new fad arguments and all these old fad arguments. That's why we defend it.